Whoa. Whenever you're ready, you can start. You're going to start. Okay. They'll turn on the air conditioning in a little while.
Shana Tova, everyone. Happy New Year, and the other greeting for Yom Kippur is Gamar Chatima Tova. May we all be sealed for a wonderful time. We are so happy to be here for this service. I'm so glad you're here with us.
So the conversation usually is, who's here tonight? The few, the proud, the ones who want to come sit in a tent. It's not raining yet, so that's good. Tonight, my friend Rick Abrams, who is a longtime friend of mine, is joining me here on the Bima. Rick and I have been doing this Kol Nidre service for a number of years, and any opportunity that I get to work with Rick is a jackpot for me. I'm Ronni Pressman. I'm the clergy associate if you don't know me. Matt, who is our tech person, who's the, as you see on the screen, the flame, he's going to put post the Machzor in the chat for the people that are at home. So welcome to those that are on Zoom for us. Whether you have your screen on or not, we're just glad that you're there with us. So welcome once again. One of the things that you're going to hear tonight is Nusach changed. Nusach is Jewish music, and it is timed or based according to time. So, for example, Shabbat morning has a specific melody to it, and we'll hear different melodies for Hanukkah and for Sukkot, but for the high holidays, you always know it's the high holiday when you hear the specific music.
For the people on Zoom.
So throughout our service tonight, you're going to hear that music. Same words we've been using all along for Baruch Hu, for Micha Mocha, and for Aleinu, but you're going to hear that funky little tune in there. So there are certain parts of the service we're going to ask you to slow down, or you'll hear that I or Rick will slow down. Go with the flow. Just listen, and you'll hear some new tune pop in there. Okay?
This service was founded out of the fact that very often, because there was only one Kol Nidre service, there wasn't a family service for Kol Nidre. We wouldn't have families in the Kol Nidre service because it's a long service that the parents without little children are going to be in there for tonight in two segments, and that is. And the fact is that this song, this melody, this chant, Kol Nidre, is so important, and for the Jewish people for so many years. We wanted to just make sure that you would be able to hear that. So we started this a bunch of years ago where we would all be in the sanctuary together, and then as soon as Kol Nidre was over, we would come into the chapel and do a family service to get out sooner than the families that were in the main service would get out. The fact is that even in the split service where we can't be in there for the singing of Kol Nidre, we wanted you to hear what it sounds like. And in fact, I want to say what it's all about. If you think about Rosh Hashanah, and you think about this 10 days that we've had between Rosh Hashanah and today, these 10 days were all about any I'm sorries you didn't get to say to your brother, to your sister, to your mom, to your dad, to your child. That's what those 9 days were for. Yom Kippur is really not about saying your sorries to your mom and dad, although you can continue to do that until tomorrow night and be that
And
good
forever,
person.
actually.
And forever. But the fact is that Yom Kippur is all about saying I'm sorry to God. And one of the ways that God really listens to us is simply by listening to our words. So when we say, I know I'm going to do better in school this year, or I know I'm going to lose weight this year. I say this often, but like I know I'm going to hit the ball better. I know I'm going to dance harder in dance class, or and then it doesn't happen. You might think, oh well, and that's fine, and you could try harder next year, and that's what you should do. But the fact is that if you say, I know I'm going to do better, I swear I'm going to do better, Kol Nidre, all my swears, all my promises, all my oaths, all my vows, all the things that I say to you, God, that I haven't met, may they be forgiven from this day until next Yom Kippur. Like make sure that you understand that I've done my repair. I've said my sorries to my family, but now I'm saying I'm sorry to you, God, and God understands that all those things that you said that you would do and you swore to God you would do and you didn't do, God forgives you. It sounds like this.
So I'm going to ask you to rise, and Rick is going to open the ark. And in the main sanctuary, Cantor Meredith's going to sing this 3 times.
The whole thing.
The whole thing. We are not singing the whole thing, but you will get the flavor of what it is. Kol nidre vesarei v'charamei v'konamei v'kinuyei v'kinusei u'shvuot.
We continue with this English version of the verse Hashivenu Adonai Elohecha v'nashuva. In English, return again.
Return again. Return again. Return to the land of your soul.
We're on page 1 in our Machzor.
Return again. Return again. Return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are. Return to what you are. Return to where you are. Born and reborn again. Return again. Return again. Return to the land of your soul. Remain standing for the Baruch Hu. Listen carefully. But if you face towards Broad Street, which is really towards Jerusalem, so AKA Broad Street, and face towards the front of the building. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Please be seated. So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes for a moment and take in a nice deep breath. I know it's not cool air. I know it's pretty humid. But in taking a nice deep breath in and then breathing out again, it gives us that opportunity to focus. And what I'm going to ask you to do is listen for the first time and then repeat the second time. You'll see why in a second. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai You see, you had to listen because the tune was changed. We're all on a journey. All of us are on a journey, as the Jews did in biblical times. In the past 18 months, the journey has been sort of like a narrow bridge, sort of like that, a little bit scary, a little bit wobbly, but as a community that support each other, we can make this journey together and not be afraid. And so the journey that the Jews took is the Mi Chamocha. However, once again, there's a different tune specifically for the high holidays. Mi Chamocha ba'elim Adonai, Mi Chamocha nedar ba'kodesh, Nora tehilot osei vele.
In a moment, we're going to move to the second part of the service, and that's the Amidah, which is the standing part of the service. You'll notice we'll do melodies that you do know, but I'm going to ask you again to listen. When we slow down, we're going to be changing into high holiday melodies. And by the way, you should know that the first line of the Amidah tells us, God, open up my lips that my mouth says the right words. So that's why we have the words here to let us follow along. And that's why we're going to ask you to please rise. And we're going to, if you can, and don't mind us not, because the camera's pointing this way, but if you want to turn your side to your left, I guess. My right, your left, would be toward Broad Street, because we pray toward, no, we don't pray toward Broad Street. We pray
towards Jerusalem.
Toward Jerusalem, and that's east.
So one other piece I'd just like to add, that on the following two prayers, a vote about those people that came before us, a vote v'imahot and givurot. When we're finished with those, we will give you that opportunity to use the words that are not in this machzor, the words that are in your hearts. Adonai sefatayv tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha.
Adonai sefatay tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Velohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Velohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Velohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Vizocher Chastei Avot V'imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'nehem, Lema'an Shemo Be'ava. Zokreinu L'chaim, Melech hafetz b'chaim, v'chotvenu b'sefer chachayim, lemancha Elohim chaim. Melech ozer u'moshia u'magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Be'ezrat Sarah. Tagibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh hakol atah Rav, Lehoshia, Morid hatal. Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechayeh hakol berachamim rabim. Somek noflim verofei cholim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato lishenei afar. Mi chamocha Gevurot, Umido Melech, Melech Memit Umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, Michamocha Avarachaman, Michamocha Zocher Yisura, Lechaim Berachamim, V'ne'eman ata lehachayot hakol. Baruch ata Adonai mechayeh hakol.
Now is the time to take a moment to pray what's in your heart. And when you're completed your silent prayer, please be seated. And as if you didn't know, whereas the line before the Amidah says, make sure you say the words right. If you look at what Ronni and I are about to sing on the top of page 4, the translation, you'll see that it's more than just those words on the page.
Yiyu liratzon imrefi, v'gyon libi lefanecha. Adonai Tsuri, Adonai Tsuri. Vegoali, Vegoali. Join us.
Yehu
liratzon imrefi, v'gyon libi lefanecha. Adonai Tsuri, Adonai Tsuri, Vegoali, Vegoali.
It's not just the words on the page, but it's the meditations of your heart that God accepts as well. In a moment, we're going to rise for what's called the vidui, and I love the way English sometimes doesn't really work with Hebrew so well, because if you look in the middle of page 4, it says in the middle of the page, confession of sin. And I just want you to realize that that's not what the vidui is all about. The vidui, because the Hebrew word is not sin. The Hebrew word is chait, and chait means you missed the mark. The verb like chait, it means you missed what you were shooting for. That's why we have a target there, right? When an archer in Israel, shoots an arrow and it lands like outside the target logo, like that archer says chatati, I missed the mark. When a soccer player on the Israeli team shoots and misses the goal and it's a 6-yard kick, that soccer player says, "Chatiti, I missed the mark." It's not the connotations of what that little word in English is. So when we sing these words and sing these songs coming up about how we miss the mark and how important it is to acknowledge how we miss the mark, please think of it as that. Like we missed a target. We're still trying. We're still going to shoot, but we missed the target this past year.
So I think the most important part about the target is that those 3 arrows hit the center, the bullseye. But if you missed it, you have the opportunity to go get those arrows again and reshoot it at another time. And that word tshuva, the whole word about turning and changing, gives you that opportunity to whatever you missed before, just try it again. It's all cool.
So we're going to rise in the middle of page 4 as we do this public confession of missing the mark.
Kulam Eloha Salichot Selach Lanu Mechalanu Kaper Lanu. So the question that we ask is, why are we all standing if only one person missed the mark? And the answer really is we never want to shame someone. We never want to make them feel guilty that, ooh, you did that. It's more like we're the community and we stand for everyone. For whatever they missed, this opportunity is here. So not only perhaps are we standing for something we missed the mark for, but we're standing there to help those that missed the mark, to help support them in this endeavor to make tshuva. So there are 2 ways, one traditional and one a more modern way to do this. When we actually recite the Hebrew, Ashamnu, which we'll do in a moment, traditionally, and Rick is a traditionalist and I'm not, so you'll see 2 different things going. If you take your hand and make a little fist, and as you say each of the words, you tap yourself. You don't pound yourself because you're not going to kill yourself for this, but you're going to tap yourself as a reminder to your heart that I made a mistake, I need to do something different. On the flip side, since I'm not so fond of the fist, I'm more up for the openness of the heart. Each time I say the word, my hand will be open in front of my heart so that perhaps my heart is open for the next time that perhaps I might miss the mark again, but the opportunity to make that change again. Choice is yours. Nobody's looking. It's all cool. Okay, so in the middle of the text in Hebrew, we're going to sing that first, and then Rick is going to lead you in the English of it, because there are some words that are in this in English that you kind of go, what does that mean? So we'll take a look. Ya-da-da-da-da, ya-da-da-da-da-da, ya-da-da-da-da-da, Ashamnu,
Ashamnu,
Bagadnu,
Bagadnu,
Gazalnu,
Gazalnu,
Dibarnu Dofi,
Tibarnu Dofi,
Ya-da-da-da-da, ya-da-da-da-da-da, ya-da-da-da-da-da, Hevinu,
Hevinu,
Vihirshanu,
Vehirshanu,
Zadnu,
Zadnu,
Hamasnu,
Hamasnu,
Tefalnu Shaker,
Tafanu Shaker,
Ya-da-da-da-da, ya-da-da-da-da-da, ya-da-da-da-da-da, Yatznura,
Yatsnu Ram,
Kizavnu,
Kizavnu,
Latsnu,
Latsnu,
Maradnu,
Maradnu,
Niatsnu,
Niatsnu,
Sararnu,
Sararnu,
Avinu,
Avinu,
Pashanu,
Pashanu,
Titzranu,
Satranu,
Kisharnu Orev,
Kishanu Ore,
ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da. Rashanu,
Rashanu,
Shichatnu,
Shichatnu,
Tiavnu,
Tiavnu,
Tainu,
Tainu,
Titanu.
Titanu. And in English, if you want to join, please join me in English together. We have committed offenses. Together we confess these human
sins, the sins of arrogance, bigotry and cynicism, of deceit and egotism, flattery and greed, injustice and jealousy. Some of us have kept grudges, were lustful, malicious, or narrow-minded. Others were obstinate or possessive, quarrelsome, rancorous, or selfish. There was violence, weakness of will, xenophobia. We yielded to temptation and showed zeal for bad causes.
Please be seated. And as you're seated, I'm going to challenge you, take a moment or two to speak with your children and make sure any of the words that we just read in English are clear in your interpretation what they mean. Because I'm just guessing that a lot of elementary or even middle school kids might not know what let's say,
Well, let's say xenophobia or
yeah. So take a moment or two and just make sure you understand what we just read.
I want to cut them off. So I'm sure that this conversation could carry on for quite some time. And we're going to move our story along, so to speak. But I want to make a connection with missing the mark and our friend Jonah, who we will see in a moment. Jonah attempts to make changes. He attempts to get others to make changes. And he really attempts to get people to finally say that they can be there. So we'll turn our attention to the screen, and Jonah's going to tell us a story. Really long time ago, he lived. This is the story of Jonah. Jonah lived a really, really long time ago. He lived before I was born. He lived before Rick was born. He even lived before your parents and your grandparents were born. That's really a long time ago. And Jonah was a prophet. A prophet is a person that speaks for God, that speaks for the eternal. And not all prophets really want to do this job. And Jonah wasn't any different from any other prophets. And he got really nervous when God spoke to him and said, Jonah, you need to go to Nineveh. The people in Nineveh are not behaving. He started shaking in his boots because he did not want to go to Nineveh. And so he ran. He ran away. He ran to the ocean. And when he got to the ocean shore, he saw that this really big ship was going to be taking off and was going to sail to Tarshish. a place in the opposite direction of where Nineveh was. He got on the boat, but he didn't tell the men on the boat what was going on. And as soon as they got out to sea, all of a sudden, a huge storm started. It rained, and it hailed, and it rained, and it hailed. And I think Jonah thought, uh-oh, I did not obey God, and God brought on this storm. And the men on the boat got so annoyed because they knew that Jonah was the one that brought on this storm. And so they tossed him overboard. And he sunk into the water and went down, 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 down until he landed inside the mouth of a huge fish. So huge, almost huge as a whale. But it was really a fish. And he got swallowed. And he was sitting in the belly of this fish. And he was sitting in there, and he was thinking, and he was praying, and he was thinking, and he was praying, and he was thinking, and he was praying for 3 days and 3 nights. And finally, I think God heard his prayer. And the big fish got near the shore and opened its mouth and threw Jonah right out of its mouth. It landed on the shore. And Jonah then thought, think I better do what God asked of me. So Jonah decides that he's going to speak to the people of Nineveh. He says to the people of Nineveh, you need to change or you will be destroyed. You need to change. You need to make tshuva. You need to turn around, to turn into that better person that you were before. And as Jonah sat there underneath a vine as he was resting, God sent the worm to eat the vine. And the vine dies. And Jonah feels really badly about that. But he knows that he spoke to those people at Nineveh. He gave them the message that God had asked him to take there. And Jonah learned all of God's creatures are precious. The people from Nineveh that needed to change, even the vine. Jonah needed to be present to learn this. He needed to observe what was there. He needed to learn. And he needed to be there. So we can only hope that Jonah learned from that story, just like we learn from stories and we learn from experiences so that we can make tshuva as well. So I'm going to ask you to rise once again. And in case you're wondering, why is that Torah cover not white, number one? And number two, I've never seen that Torah cover before. We have people that are holding the Torahs inside in the service, and we picked the lightest Torahs that they could lift. So we relinquished our white-covered one. This one happens to be our Holocaust scroll that is on loan from England. And we have it, and we're caring for it. And if you ever get a chance, not here, but in the sanctuary, to peep inside of the Torah cover, there are a whole series of people in the congregation that had folks that either perished in the Holocaust or when they were in Europe, and there are photographs of them on the inside of the cover, and their names are scribed as well. So their souls are touching our scroll.
The ark is open because we're at this time of the service where we're saying, God, our protector, our parent, our guide, almighty and merciful, answer us the prayers that we have in our hearts, the sorries that we said, that we banged our chest or opened our hearts to, and please accept our deeds and our actions in the future as we can move forward into the next year. And that's why we're going to sing at the top of page 5, Avinu Malkeinu, those words in tradition. Avinu Malkeinu, Fonenu Vanenu,
עמנו, צדקה וחסד והושיענו. אבינו מלכנו, חוננו ועננו. אבינו מלכנו, חוננו ועננו, כי אין בנו מעשים. We remain standing, and Rick is going to close our ark because we're going to be facing Yerushalayim one more time in part of our concluding prayers. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula leotzer breshit, shelo asanu kigoye haratzot, velo samanu kamishpachot adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני מלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. Please be seated. One of our final concluding prayers is called the Mourner's Kaddish. And I always like to think of it not as a mourner's Kaddish, but a declaration that we're speaking about God. And we're listing all of the amazing qualities about God. So why is it called the Mourner's Kaddish? Because it's known to be the last or final prayer that was said at a house of mourning. For those that are confused about mourning, it's not good morning like when you wake up. It's mourning in sadness. But there's nothing sad about this prayer. And if you read the English at the very bottom in the very tiny letters, you would see that it really just is addressing the amazingness, if there is such a word, of God. And I like to think that when we are thinking about those that came before us, we think about them just like we do in the early morning prayers, way early in the morning, when the sun's just coming up, and we think about one of them in particular that says we are created in God's image, B'Tselem Elohim. And the connection to me is all the people that were created in God's image that came before us are those people that have those godlike qualities, and they're no longer with us. So I'm going to look around the room and ask if there's anyone that's saying Kaddish now, or they're saying Shloshim or Shiva and need to stand to say the names of those people. And if you're also marking within the 1 year, and if you're not marking that, but you're marking all of the days for all of the people that came before us, I would ask you to rise and say those names. And for those folks that are on Zoom, if you'd like to put the names in the chat. And we never stand alone for the Kaddish in this congregation either, just like we stood to support each other in those times for Ashamnu and other prayers. When we're talking about things that we need to change, we stand together in support as we say the Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalmad divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'yamru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudusha b'rechu. Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran b'yoma v'yamru amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Please be seated. Yeah. So it's time for me to just insert for one quick minute. Josh Katz is going to come and speak to you guys for a moment. He is the president of our synagogue, and how could we have a service during the high holidays when Josh doesn't come to speak with us? So come on up before we do our closing prayer. Josh, you can use that microphone over there because I think it's working. Go close.
Yes.
Good.
I'm a little bit of a stand-in for the rabbi because with all the different times of the services, he can't really get out here. So I'm a poor substitute, I know, but just to say that nobody forgot about everybody out here, first. And second, Ronni and Rick, thank you so much for doing this week and last week. And I wasn't going to talk about this, but the real story is that when I asked a few of our past presidents who were women to hold the Torah on Kol Nidre, they told me they couldn't because it was too big.
So we left the light ones inside.
Which is terrible and unacceptable. I mean, we run around about inclusion here all day long, and we've got half the population can't hold the Torah. So I had the bright idea to ask somebody who's responsible for inclusion here to start looking into actual lighter Torahs. We're going to see what we can do about that.
You know
I
what
don't
the
know how
truth
available
really
they
is?
are. What?
If you carry a Torah,
Yeah.
whether it's a light one or a heavy one,
Mhm.
that's a mitzvah. So whether it's a man or a woman that's holding on to a Torah, they need a light one, it's better to have that than none at all.
That's fine, but we're not knocking women out of holding the Torah on Kol Nidre anymore because the Torah is too big. We've got to do something about this. We're going to try. All right, now I cut into my own speech, so I'm going to try to, I don't know how I'm going to speed this up, but all right, I'm going to do my best. This weekend, the rabbi did a Dvar Torah about the difference between guilt and shame. And the Cliff Notes version is that shame is no good, but guilt is great. So,
And very Jewish.
and very Jewish. It got me thinking about shame, and I remember I was about 9 years old watching Saturday Night Live. I was probably a little young for that, but fine. And Dennis Miller, this is 1987, decides he's going to hand out the Shanda for the Goyim Award, which he does. And I'm not going to get into the whole thing about that because I ran out of time. But I didn't really know what that was. So my father explains it to me, and I'm like, oh, wow, the Shanda, okay, shame in front of the Goyim, oh, okay, I get it. And then I think to myself, wow, you know, like any Jew would, I hope I don't get that award, right? And I'm sort of glad somebody else got it. And that kind of gets you off the hook, right? Because someone else has it and you don't have to worry. Maybe you don't have to keep track of your own self so much. And it works a little bit the opposite way when it comes to giving. Because maybe we think to ourselves, oh, I know those people gave over there and those people gave over there. Maybe I don't have to give. And I know that you're all thinking, you're putting 2 and 2 or maybe 3 and 3 together and saying, okay, Yom Kippur, president of the synagogue, giving, that this is the appeal. Well, it's not the appeal. Tomorrow, Gary Redoran is going to do the appeal. At Ner Tamid, the president doesn't have to do the appeal. Believe it or not, I'm not actually talking about money. A couple of years ago, Kenny Cohen introduced us, or at least me, first time I heard it, to the alliterative phrase, time, talent, and treasure. 3 T's. Now, I teach the 3 T's in my self-defense classes. They're a little different. It's target hardening, toughness, and technique. In that order, in order of importance. And I know you're thinking that's crazy because technique's got to be the most important. If you don't learn how to punch, how are you going to defend yourself? But I have a Jewish answer for that, which is better to not be in the dark alley than to have to fight your way out of it. So I figure time, talent, and treasure that Kenny talks about is in the same order also, which I know some of you are going like this. I can't believe he put treasure at the bottom. It's the most important thing, right? It's what pays for the walls. It's what's paying for our new roof. It's what pays for some very important salaries. But it's really time that matters. It's your time that matters. Because the first thing you do with your time, as it relates to us, is say that you're somehow part of the Jewish people. And the next thing you do is you say, Temple Ner Tamid is going to be part of me. That choice of time is what makes this a real congregation. And I had that conversation with some of our most generous donors this summer, saying, this is a congregation. It's not a Temple Ner Tamid, it's congregation Ner Tamid. And the time that you invest, even if it's just as much as joining and saying, I'm here, is what makes this a thing. That's what makes this this. Before there was a synagogue here standing, this congregation existed in people's backyards, it existed in people's homes, it existed in the parks, and now it exists online, even when we're not here in this building. And so your time is the most valuable thing we have here. And that's that. So have an easy fast, have a meaningful fast, and we'll hit you up for the cash tomorrow. All right?
And while he said he's not a fill-in for the rabbi, you should know that this week at 8:30 in the morning on Shabbat morning, if you log into Temple Ner Tamid's, Torah study, which is a really fun thing to do on a Saturday morning, Josh Katz is leading our Torah study this coming Shabbat morning.
No, it's 8:30
No, it's 8:30 a.m. from now on.
8:30 to 9:30, so that you can hurry up and get in your vehicle and come over for the casual minion.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have one closing prayer that you don't need to stand for. You can feel it in your heart. You can return. You can make tshuva. Hashivenu, Hashivenu, Adonai Elecha, Vena Shuva, Vena Shuva, Chadesh, Chadesh, Yameinu Kekedem. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, born and reborn, and return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. So we say thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for making this Kol Nidre for us kind of special in the tent. Have a meaningful and safe fast. If you're not old enough to fast, just think of it in a few years. If you are old enough to fast, just do it safely.
And if you're not old enough to fast, why don't you not have dessert tomorrow? Why don't you give up something a little bit that you might normally not give up for one meal for one day?
So tomorrow morning you can join us for 9 o'clock a.m. for Biyachad, or the 11:15 a.m. We will be streaming the first one, and you will be able to see, if you don't come on, you'll be able to see it on YouTube tomorrow later in the afternoon. And Rick will say our final words.
Those are the way I began the service. Shana Tova Umitzuka. May this wonderful year be a wonderful, healthy year for all of us. Gamar Chatima Tova. May we all be sealed for a great year.
Thanks again for coming. Woo, baby.
I'll take it.